first sight. But it's funny that it was this song, Taking a Chance on Love, though. And I was a young guy then, but what about as you get a little older? Do you start building barriers and roadblocks out there to all that? Okay, the music can go out, and bring in the good doctor here now, our good friend Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing, and the podcast always at drjohnb.com. Good morning, sir.
Well, good morning to you, Dave. And I might say one of the things that always surprises me is how many people who are lonely and unhappy, but they're just not willing to take a chance on love. You know, they just won't do it. I mean, the following are really common reasons. There's some overlap, but they are really distinctly different. You know, they're finding flaws in the potential partners, or letting perfect, if you will, ruin good and very good potential relationships. Fruitless comparison with ex-partners or spouses, letting the fear of rejection supersede the possibility for a loving relationship, and setting rigid requirements that eliminate many promising potential partners. So these are some really key things. Then you have the marriage phobic, of course, or the relationship phobic. So you have really millions, actually, of really unhappy people that claim they want a relationship, they want something, but when you talk to them, they come up with all kinds of reasons why they just can't be in one. And some may be legitimate, but so many are just based on unrealistic views of what a relationship is and can be.
The big question is, why? Why do people do this? Why is it a self-defeating proposition?
Well, I think a lot of it is fear. I think a lot of it is unrealistic. I mean, if you have a standard of perfection, whatever that is, okay, and I mean, not many people meet that standard on Earth, okay?
No,
that's not an
true.
earthly standard. But people look and they find things, or they think someone's too loud. They don't like the particular degree in education the person has. They don't like their political views. They don't like their religious views. They don't like the way they interact with people. I mean, there's so many things that people can find. They don't like the height of the person, the weight of the person. These may sound trivial, but these are the things that I hear, that people will say, I could just never really care for this person, or I don't like her family, or she's so loud. And I make the point, I say, well, you know, these are traits that you might find to be problematic, but why don't you focus on traits that really can pull you together? Because if you find someone who's kind, caring, is responsible, has a similar spirituality, a similar moral code, a similar view on how to live a life, if you're going to have children or if you're raising joint children, okay, you know, from two families, those are really key things that really make success or failure. It's not the way the person looks. It's not the way that they particularly look at the kind of car they have, or the particular education. All these are factors and things we put in. But if we miss the key ones of kindness, of caring, of understanding, of teamwork, of common goals and aspirations, common spiritualism, if we miss those, then we're really out of line. And a lot of it is a fear of rejection, Dave. I mean, I've run into a lot of people over the years that are so, even if they're happily married or happily in a relationship, they talk about the love that they let go because they were afraid to pursue it. I'll just give you one example. It's a person I was just talking to a little while ago. Well, this was some years ago. This is a person I just know. We were talking, it was like 30 years ago, and he worked with the state. A person was doing some contractual work with the state, and they really got along good. They worked well together. And he thought about asking her out, but when she was there, said, well, she's doing this contractual work inappropriate. Then she's leaving, and was from the metro area, actually. Was coming in and doing some work here. So she talks and goes and meets with him and says how much she enjoyed working with him and really enjoyed him as a person, found him just very unique. And that, you know, if ever he wanted to make contact or anything, you know, that she would be glad to talk to him. She handled it professionally, but clearly let on.
The door was open. The door was open.
Yeah. But then it's even further open. So then later, she then drops him a note, just again says, you know, I still think of the good times and enjoyment of working with you. And just if ever you want to make contact. Well, anyway, he's still said he was debating, waited, just said, no, I'm afraid that it's just some confusion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, to make a long story short, he ends up marrying, ends up being happy, has a relatively happy relationship. And then later on, he just happened to run into this person, okay, who also had a relatively successful life, you could say. And then she said to him that she really fell for him, was in love with him, or cared for him. They worked together for quite a while, actually. But in those days, anyway, she just didn't feel she could do more than coming to see him before she leaves, making a strong point, and then writing to him even. And it really upset him. Fortunately, he's had a good life. I mean, he's having a good life, I should say. But it was one of those things that you have to be brave a little bit. I mean, how many people have lost out on in life and in relationships by not being willing to make just a small little statement? Would you ever like to get together or whatever? It
Millions, millions,
and yes, and it's really the fear of rejection. But if you really look at it, the fear of rejection is a small pinprick compared to the blowing up emotional problem of missing out on an opportunity where there might have been. You have to be a little brave, but on the other hand, you just have to make some tries. But so many people, they really won't do that. They self-sabotage. So I just always encourage people, not to be overly frontal, but if you see someone you enjoy and you're spending time together, and it's obviously a good time, there's nothing wrong with saying, I really enjoy spending time with you, and would even like at times to spend more time. And the person says, well, I think we spend enough right now, or this is good. I guess you kind of know where things are. The person says, yeah, that would be great. I really enjoy your company. Then that's kind of a road to be dealt with. And another bad one is comparing. Let's say you had a bad divorce or a few bad relationships, and you love the person, but they didn't love you. And all of a sudden you find a very acceptable, good person, but all of a sudden you compare them, but they're not like that person. And this is a conversation I've had many times over the years. I say, well, wait a minute now. That relationship totally failed. The person ran around on you, treated you very poorly. Why would you be comparing in a negative way a person who's kind and caring and resourceful and a team player versus, well, I just like some of those other traits? And that's when you have to really deal with, people are, Dave, people are funny. People are motivated by things, and people are attracted to people you'll never know. My dad called them tricks of the devil, when he said when you see people that it made no sense that they were together. And oddly, sometimes those were the ones that would survive, and those that seemed to be good did not. But again, I just think if we're realistic, if we're lonely, we're unhappy, we need to realistically set out the kind of person we want to be with and just kind of go from there. But if we set up the person has to be 5'10", has to have blonde or brunette, has to have a certain voice quality, has to have this particular degree. I mean, you can get so precise on these things that you eliminate almost everybody. And you say, but I have standards. And I say, well, I have standards. And I think, to me, good, caring, sensitive, tuned in to feelings, working, being responsible. Things, If you meet those standards, I think how tall the person is, as an example, is far less of an important thing. But there are people that are really obsessed. And, the funny thing, if you've been married many, many years, it's not that you don't find your wife or husband or, in terms of attractive, but it's really the love that you grow together as a team. You're a loving team, and that's really what it is. Everybody can't be Romeo and Juliet for the rest of their life physically. So love it grows and develops into a really nurturing, wonderful relationship if it's given a chance to grow, and each party works together as a hard-working member. And I think if you have spirituality, it even adds another strong component, to the relationship.
And hey, I look at it this way. We've already made it way past Romeo and Juliet's expiration date. So I mean that candle burned bright, but it was brief. It was a brief flicker. But what you're saying is right. And again, I think one of the important things here I'm hearing in the takeaway is don't be afraid to make that step. Don't be afraid to take a chance. I go to the high school dance when I was a kid. I told my dad, do you have any advice for me, Dad? Because I'm a little spooked. He said, never be afraid to ask the prettiest girl in the room to dance. Good call. You know what? It's a good call because they want to dance too. Yeah. Take a chance on love. The Good Doctor, Regional Psychological Services in East Lansing. drjohnb.com. That's the website. Take care, Doc. Good talking to you always.
Pleasure, my friend. Love the music.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. We're back in the morning wake up.